Welcome everyone to another amazing episode of the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth Show, where we are in powerful conversations about living your best life. And today I am extremely excited to welcome our guest and my friend, KAREN CHASTON. We're going to explore the topic, 360 degrees of living a meaningful life. So before we get started, let me just tell you a little bit about KAREN. She's a former CFO of a publicly listed company. She's co-founder of the Chaston Centre. She's a life coach, a beyond loss expert, an educator, and recently developed the People Profits Connection, bringing more awareness with tangible solutions for companies to better value and support their employees. KAREN experienced a life event that changed everything for her, and today she's on a mission to assist women and men in discovering the gift of loss and how life must be viewed in a 360-degree spectrum to live it more meaningfully. KAREN's sharing her wisdom with us today, and I want to say, kick back, get your pen and paper out, listen, send us a note in the chat. Just KAREN, welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks, V-Lynn. I'm so excited to be here. I love chatting with you.
Well, I love chatting with you. You are such a bright light. And as a former CFO and co-founder of the Chaston Centre, I know that there's a wonderful story around all of that. And you know, for me, it's a rather bittersweet story. And I love how bitter comes first in that bittersweet combination, because anything that we do experience that may begin as something that's bitter or harsh, just, difficult to kind of be in for the moment, can be transformed into something that is sweet and is beyond expectation. And the beyond loss mentorship that you do, I know helps take people right there. So with that, what do you say we just jump right into our
Sounds awesome. Let's do it.
All right. Okay, so I always find this such an amazing question to ask, because stories are powerful. And I know that there's a story behind why you do what you do, but please share with our audience a little bit more about you and your journey towards this focus on helping women and men moving beyond loss and into a life of meaning and joy.
Yes, well, it's the old saying, you have to have the rain before you can have the rainbow. And that really is what life is all about. If we choose to see it that way, or whether we get stuck in the rain for way too long. And, back in 2011, 10 years ago in July, it was, I thought I was living a successful life. I ticked all those boxes, so to speak. I had the career, I had the great salary, I had the house, the car, the overseas trips, the family, everything. I could have gone tick, 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 tick. But then, of course, I didn't even realize that how unfulfilled I was, how I was living in a Groundhog Day days, until the 10th of July, when my husband and I woke up thinking we were going to have a lazy Sunday at home. Though within minutes, I was running out the back door, looking at my 27-year-old son, Dan, just lying there on the ground, thinking he was unconscious. But unfortunately, within minutes after the paramedics arrived, they just said those words that no mother, no parent ever wants to hear, which was, "I'm sorry, madam, he's dead," probably has been for several hours. And me being my busy corporate, self, it was like, well, what do I do with this sort of thing? I don't want to be a grieving mother. So I lived all the cliches, which most of us do. I kept busy, I gave it time, I did all of those sort of things. But the thing is, in hindsight, and now after deep diving into loss, I realized that I just went into avoidance. And we're all so good at avoidance, aren't we, Lynn?
We are.
We've created a world of avoidance, alcohol industries, pharmaceutical industries, Netflix, shopping. We even call shopping retail therapy. Working. I'm so busy. It's avoidance. It's like, what are you so busy about? What are you actually avoiding in your life? And more often than not, we're avoiding being alone with ourselves. And that's where it was. I went back to my CFO role the day after Dan's funeral, and everyone was a little bit shocked. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I'd rather be here than sitting at home, contemplating things. But I just deep dived in, working more, eating more, drinking more. And of course, the universe wasn't happy with me about that. So they had to send me another little wake up call. And I'm sure if I didn't wake up after that one, I would have got another one and another one and another one. And then 15 months after Dan passed, I had a choice to make. The company I was working with was merging with another. And through the merger process, they said to me, Karen, you won't be CFO in the new role. And I wasn't all that fussed about that. They said, look, you'll be doing everything you're doing now plus more, which I thought, yeah, that's fine, until they gave me my contract. And the contract was for 2/3 of what my salary was at that time. And it was the greatest gift they ever gave me, because it made me stop. It made me stop and look at my life and figure out where I was. And I came to the conclusion, which I had never ever realized, that as much as I love my job, I was only there for the money. And, money doesn't sustain you. Sure, it might feed you and give you nice clothes and, more expensive this and that and all that sort of stuff, but it doesn't sustain you. It doesn't fill that void in you where, you're thinking, surely there must be more to life. Surely there must be something else I can be doing. So that's when I started on this journey. And along the way, I co-founded the Chaston Centre, became a Beyond Loss coach, became an international speaker, an author, and I ticked more boxes, but better boxes, more passionate boxes that I am about, which is fabulous. So that's me in a nutshell.
Well, that is a fabulous story, because, we do go on this journey, don't we? And the beauty is that when we do wake up and realize that we've been on this Groundhog days
Yep.
wheel.
Yep. And it is a rabbit wheel, a mouse wheel, isn't it? We are just constantly pedaling and wondering why we're going nowhere.
Yeah. So to wake up before it's our last day, and to know that, every day ahead of you has just another meaning to it, right?
Yeah, totally. And what I like too is to wake up before it was, something else. It could have been my health. It could have been, my wealth. It could have been so many more things, which is what I like to share with people, that there are so many loss events that most of us don't even realize that they are a loss event, that they are a grief causing situation. And we doubt ourselves. We go, why do I feel like this? Not realizing that we're actually in grief.
So tell us what some of those are that we take for granted, that they're just something we're
well,
supposed
obviously
to deal
the
with.
most obvious one is a loss of a loved one. And, we totally understand that we're going to go through life and we are going to lose loved ones and friends and colleagues along the way. It's just a natural progression. But, I found out the hard way, as did you, that just because you were born first doesn't mean you're going to depart first. And there's a great saying, which I learned long before Dan passed, actually, and I had started to embrace it, which is, if you have a look at your birth certificate, there's no expiry date on it. And it's really important for us to understand that the date has been set. We just don't know when that date is. So why aren't we living today like it is our last day? And it's really important for us to embrace that. So apart from a loss of a loved one, Could be a divorce, you know, a partnership breakdown, your job, your health, your wealth, your pets, or during this recent, you know, worldwide pandemic, loss of freedom, choice, status, identity, changing work conditions, recreational and social activities, they all came to the forefront. And most of us weren't even aware of it. You know, one of the things that I've found when I work with all of my clients, the most common one, and the one that we don't even realize, is loss of identity. And it's something
Interesting.
that starts to happen in our early years, in our formative years. We start to stop doing the things that we love. You know, we might tell, someone might say, oh, you're not very good at that. And we take on that belief, which isn't even our belief, it's their belief. And because we believe now that we're not very good at it, we keep showing everyone, you're right, we're not very good at it. You know, when I was at school, I became an accountant. I was really good at maths, which I got from my dad, thankfully. But I wasn't that great at writing. But I've written, you know, I'm just about to, you know, I'm pitching to a publisher as we sort of creating this for my 5th book. So, you know, why did I take on that belief that I wasn't very good at English and writing and all those sort of things for so long?
Yeah, one of the best questions someone helped me to recognize that when we're in those spaces to ask yourself is, who told you that?
Yeah.
And was that the truth?
Yeah.
Your truth, their truth? I mean, and really look at that. And even as it relates to loss, you know, in life, we have life happening to us. And sometimes it just knocks us out of our flow, off of our, you know, buckling at the knees. And one of the biggest challenges you find when looking at how we cope with loss and how it affects every aspect of our lives, it's a process of movement forward.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how it is that you see that we might be able to start that forward movement, maybe more quickly, but with still honoring the fact that we've
Yeah.
experienced a loss.
Well, believe it or not, the first movement forward is to stop. And most of us don't do that stopping. We try to go back to our normal life, how we lived before the event happened. And, you know, I was the same. I went straight back to my CFO role as the day after Dan's funeral. So it's really important for us to stop. And then to deep dive into asking questions like, what does this mean for me now? What does it mean for me moving forward? You know, how is this going to affect my life? All areas of my life, not just, you know, me financially. How is it going to affect me emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically? All of those questions, which are really important, but we've got to stop because we will never get our answers while we're still carrying on. It's in the stopping that we get to hear the little whispers, our innate whispers, our, you know, our guidance from beyond, because so often we ask everyone else for our answers, but they can't give you our answers or your answers because they haven't walked in your shoes. They have their own belief systems and they have their own things which are going to either limit them or excel them, but we need to find our own answers. And it's not easy. I'm not going to say it's easy, but the beautiful thing about it is we have been given these amazing things called emotions, right? And our emotions are actually our guidance. They're actually our friends. And I know that most people listening are going, BS, I don't think so. I don't like it when I feel down or, you know, depressed and things like that. But they're a guidance for you. They're your innate ability for you to actually understand, okay, what is going on here? What is this emotion about? You know, where does it go back to? What is it that I have left unsaid or undone, or I wish I hadn't said, or I wish I hadn't done, or, you know, and it's about you doing that deep dive and finding those answers. Because when you do actually find that answer, that emotion will do what it's meant to do. Energy, emotion, it will come and it will flow through you. Sure, it may be replaced with another one, but then you do the deep dive on that one. And you can take a breather in between. You don't have to like line them all up, sort of thing. But, and the beauty is that the more you deep dive into these emotions, the more you can ask the question is, what's this emotion about? What is it that I required to heal? What is it that I am required to forgive, to apologize for, or to complete, to acknowledge? There's so many things in our relationships that we don't take the time to acknowledge, or to do a forgiveness over, or to do an apology over. And that's what our emotions are about. And that's the thing that is not easy. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it gets easier the more you do it, because guess what? You start to have less and less negative emotions, and you start to have more of the higher vibrations, the joy, the love, the fulfillment, the fun.
All of which are places that we would prefer to be. But I know too that a lot of times we think that because of what family or society or our culture says we're to experience, we would prefer to honor that versus honor ourselves.
Yeah.
And you and I had a conversation not too long ago about something called loss intelligence. And I think there's a real connection there, right? So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about this thing called loss intelligence and how we tap into that to kind of help us on this journey.
Okay, so intelligence is us learning, becoming aware, and then applying the knowledge and the skills. So that's an intelligence, right? And there's obviously a whole lot of different intelligence. So when it comes to loss intelligence, it's about us taking the time to deep dive into and understand what loss is actually all about. Now, most of us have never really been taught what to do when a loss event occurs in our lives. And because we don't know, most of us go, right, let's shove those emotions down, because that's not appropriate, the way to sort of thing. People are sick and tired of me talking about it. They're actually avoiding me. I literally saw a lady when I was walking down the street a couple of months after Dan passed, cross the road to avoid me. And it was like, seriously? I'm not the one that's, sure, I'll always talk about him, but I'll talk about him in a positive way, just like we're talking about him now. I wouldn't talk about, oh, how sad I am that my son has passed and all these sort of things. So I was like, seriously, you're avoiding me? Okay, fair enough. It says more about you than it actually says about me, but that's okay. So it is about us deep diving in and to understand not only what to do when loss comes to us, but also when loss comes to someone else. And most people do not know what to say. They have no idea. I was on a podcast early last year, and a man in the UK, and he said to me, I've just been to a funeral. A friend of ours committed suicide, and there was 8 of us standing around looking at each other going, what do we say to the parents? Like, we've known the parents since we were young. What do we say to the parents? And they're all standing around going, I don't know. Some of them didn't say anything. Some of them just stumbled up and said something like, oh, I'm sorry for your loss. And he said, Karen, what would I say? And I say, that's what you say. And he goes, what do you mean that's what you say? And I said, you walk up to them and you say, I have no idea what to say. I'm at a loss. I don't know what you're going through, but I would love to be here for you, even if it's just for someone to listen to you so you can talk. And, that in itself is such a gift, because no one wants to talk about the deceased. No one wants to talk about your ex-husband if you've been divorced and bring up all of these things. Sure, they might bring up all of the negative things, but what I've found is when people get divorced, people tend to side with one or the other. And it's like, hey, wait a minute, we've all hung out for 20 years or 10 years or whatever as couples, and now you're going to bag it? Does that mean the past, whatever time it was, means nothing? And it's really, it's not good. It's not good at all. And it's just, just saying something like, oh, wow, I didn't see that coming, or I can't believe that, whatever you really feel, without bringing down either of the other party, and just saying, I'm here to, I'm here to listen to you. How can I help you? And that's what loss intelligence is all about, is people understanding that it is a natural progression in life. It's about understanding that there are so many different types of losses. And unless you've personally experienced, you have no idea what the other person is going through. Like, I have little idea about what another mother is going through when they lose their child. I have an understanding because I've been through it, but I still have no idea. I don't know what their relationship was like, how, they came together, how much of a void this is going to create in that person's life. So I will listen. And it's through listening is how you can know how to be there. And when everyone knows how to do that, then when loss comes to you, people know how to be there for you. They don't say things like, aren't you over that yet? Like, when are you going to get back to normal? When are you going to come out dancing with us again? They're going to have more of an intelligence to actually go, wow, okay, they're going through this. Similar to what I went through when I went through something different, but at least you understand it. But people avoid it. We have created a world of it. Netflix, social media is all avoidance, so that we don't look into our own life. We don't heal the things. We don't deep dive into our emotions. And that's what is lost intelligence. Long answer, but I'm pretty sure I got there in the end.
I'm certain you did. That was a really great explanation. And, I love the fact that you brought up the, how do you respond? What do you say? What, you've got your own feelings going on, they have their feelings going on. And I love that, just, I'm here for you. I have no idea what this is for you. That is so perfect, because
it is, Lynn, because most people are worrying about how they feel, and they don't want to say the wrong thing. You can't say the wrong thing at that time, unless you completely bag the person. But by putting yourself in their shoes a little bit and just going, I just don't know what you're feeling, but yeah. I'd like to know if you want to tell me.
Yeah. And that kind of compassion is priceless. People really have a heart of gratitude for that. And, you also mentioned about time and timing. You said, aren't you over that by now? And that's shocking in itself, but you also know that that's going through people's mind, both the person experiencing the loss and someone who is kind of treading light, with interacting, because they're thinking, it's been a long time, but they're still in that space. What amount of time is considered sufficient to deal with a loss?
There is no such thing. Everyone is different. We're all unique. We all have our own time frames. I met a lady who was out dating 3 months after her husband of 30 years had passed away from cancer. But that was their time frame that they set. And I thought it was amazing. I thought, good on you. He knew exactly what his wife was like. He knew that if she was home alone, she would just become depressed. And she was a people person, and they had come to the agreement that that was the time frame for her to start going out and socializing. So many people were mortified. And it's like, no, wait a minute. That's between them. It's their relationship. It has nothing to do with anyone else. And it's important for people to understand that your time frame may have nothing to do with someone else's. I've met people who lost their children 20 years ago, and they were still unable to talk about their child. And I was like, seriously? So is it just like the child never existed? Like, no one was allowed to mention their name around them. Which I think is, oh my God, that's just like saying that the person didn't exist because of the pain, but it was all about them. And it was really funny. A lady sent me something yesterday, and it was from Anita Moriarty, who I just love. She's written a book, Dying to Be Me, which is amazing.
Marjani, Anita
Yeah,
Marjani. Yeah.
yeah. And she, it was something about grief. And if you are grieving, it's all about you. And when I read it, I went, oh my God, that is so true. Your grief is about you. You're grieving for what you've lost, for what your life's going to be about. And so many people put grief into about the person, whatever, but it's about you. And when you realize it's about you, you set your time frame, you set the path that you walk, you set the time that you do the deep dive into you. And I highly recommend it's a lot sooner than later, because you're going to do it eventually. Whether, you know, if you want to have a healthy relationships moving forward, and if you want to have a healthy, productive life moving forward, the sooner you do this deep dive, the sooner you will move from loss back into love. And isn't that where we all want to be? You know, I love to say that our life is an infinite journey from love to loss. And when we realize that, we go, right, okay, I'm in loss. I'm getting back to love as quickly as I can, because I want to spend as much time there as possible. But you've got to do the deep dive to get back there properly. Okay, you can mask it, but the Band-Aid is going to eventually come off. So do it, I reckon.
I reckon too. Yes. Yes. And that really also speaks to the 360 degrees of living a meaningful life. We're all going to experience losses along the journey of life. And it is about how we decide that we're going to respond to them like everything else. Why not have I guess a more intimate deciding factor? You know, it's my decision how long I'm going to grieve. It's my decision what I will do in the grieving process. It's my decision versus, you know, a lot of us have been trained to understand the theory of the 5 stages or the 5 steps of grief. And
5 stages of grief.
You got to go through this, and then you're in anger, and you got to stay in there for a little while, and then you're in this, and you got to stay there. How do you balance that out and even reconcile that to the knowledge that you don't have to stay in any state that is uncomfortable or undesirable for yourself?
Well, the thing is, right, so that book was written by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and she was a psychotherapist, and she did a lot of research on how we do loss, mainly death, and she came up with these 5 stages. But the thing is, she was researching how we do loss and how we had done it for centuries and centuries and centuries. She wasn't telling everyone, this is how you do loss. She was saying this is how we are doing loss. So the thing is, yes, there are all those emotions. And when we do the deep dive into those emotions and find the cause, the reason behind that, and it more than likely it's something you didn't say, something you didn't do, something you did say, you didn't, you know, and it comes back to what I said before. You will find things that you would like to apologize for. You will find things you'd like to forgive and things that you'd like to acknowledge. So as soon as you do that on each of those emotions, you come to acceptance, right? Which is why in my 5-step process, the gift of loss, the first one is stop. The second one is acceptance, because you've done the stopping and you've started in to come to acceptance because you've looked at who you are. You can then move on to identify, and then you identify all of the things, all of the emotions. You'd identify all of the things that you would like to apologize for, forgive, and acknowledge. And then you can complete it, and then you can come into the pivot. Now, the pivot is where the 360 comes in. And it's so in the Chaston Centre Wellness Wheel of Life, we have 9 areas of life. Okay. And of course, it's a wheel, 360 degrees. And it's about us understanding that our life is all of these different and little spokes in the wheel. And the more time that the more time we focus, I'm not going to say spend, the more time that we focus on every single spoke or every single area of life, the more that we can come into balance. And as we know, if a wheel on a car, if one of the spokes are out of alignment, it's not going to roll along very smoothly. And most of us have a very uneven wheel. If we looked at where we are in our life, in each area of life, we would find that we're probably spending most of our time in our professional space, and we're probably, just doing a little bit everywhere and else. So because there's 9 areas of life and there's a lot, I've broken it down into 4 pillars: all about you, all about your relationships, all about your expertise, and all about your wealth creation. Now, I said them in that order on purpose because that's the way we should be focusing our lives. We should come first. Most of us are putting ourselves last. Most of us put ourselves last for 50, 60 years and then wonder why we have no joy and fulfillment in our life. And then once we get us right, then we can move on to our relationships, because our relationships are very important. Then we can look at our expertise, and then we can look at our wealth creation. But most people do it the other way around. I want this amount of wealth. I want this career, which will give me this amount of wealth. Sure, I'll get some relationships along the way. I'll worry about me later. How often do you hear of someone retiring at 65, 70, and they're dead within 6 months? And they're like, but my retirement years were my years. And it's like, yeah, guess what? You ran out of time because you didn't look after yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And that's where it's so important for us to understand that the more we deep dive into all areas of our life, and we don't have to spend the same amount of time in each area, which is just as well, because we can't afford 8 hours a day in all 9 areas, sort of thing, won't work. That's what that's all about, is the 360. Is so deep diving into them, understanding where you are now, where you would like to be, and then what's required to close that gap and close that gap and close that gap, so that we actually close it this way, because we always end up where we want to be. And that's how you create it. But it's about understanding everything that's happened in your life to bring you to who you are, all of your trials, all of your tribulations, because there has been a gift in each of them. And there's such an amazing gift in every loss event. And it's not the loss event, it's who you become after the loss event, which is the gift. Like, I'd love to have Dan with me here, but I've received so many gifts from him being on the other side. I say I spend more time with him than I do with his siblings, because he's constantly giving me information. He's constantly pointing things out to me. I have the intelligence that I have now, especially around loss, because of what I experienced through his passing.
Wow. That was beautiful and so well said. And I receive it personally. And I am certain that our audience has been able to receive that as well. Yes, really. Now let's talk a little bit about the work that you do with companies. Another thing that I think is so important to understand is how companies look at their employees and support their employees, especially now that we're in this post-COVID life and lifestyle and moving to whatever our new normal is going to become. And I would say that it'd be safe to assume that as things have changed for us personally, things have changed for companies. Things have changed around how they will need to support their employees going forward. So what have you seen that's impacting or will impact companies as we define what things are going to look like going forward?
Well, let's hope this happens, because for a long time, Gallup has done yearly surveys, and if I just take from, say, 2000 up until 2021, so for 21 years they have done these yearly surveys, and they've come in at, on average, that there are only 30% of their employees who are fully engaged. And they break it down even further with the other 70% saying that 40% of them are actively disengaged and the other 30% are just disengaged. Like, seriously, like, that is just incredible that you can have 70% of the workforce worldwide, which comes to about, 5 billion people. If you break down, we've got about 8 billion people in the moment, 5 billion are roughly employed, and it comes down to like 1.4 of us are engaged of that 5 billion. Like, seriously. And you go, well, why? Why are people so disengaged? And then if you go back through history, you can start to see it's because of the way, we've all been treated. And I'm as much to blame. I was the CFO, and, I look back at some of the things that I did. But we have been having these leadership sort of tools of, you look after the shareholders first, then the customer, and then maybe the employee, which is ridiculous when you think your employee is the one who is serving everyone. If they don't turn up, if they're not fulfilled, if they're not happy, if they're not heard and understood and respected, how can they possibly rock up each and every day, expected to leave their personal life at the door? We're not one-dimensional. We are human beings, and it's really important for us, for every employer, to understand that your employees are actually your greatest asset. And, when I was at university, we did this exercise, and it was a great exercise of if you look at the profit and loss and you look at the balance sheet, employees are classed as an expense. But what would happen if we actually class them as an asset that we would invest in, that we would make sure was always in tip-top running condition, because they were the ones that were producing, assets are producing, they produce the revenue. So if you started to have that focus, and I'm not talking about changing the accounting standards, I'm just talking about if we did that mental exercise and stop viewing them as an expense and start viewing them as this greatest asset, one that we could invest in, one that we could actually get to know, like, and trust, and find out what's going on. Like, yesterday you were a machine just producing all of these amazing work, and today I can hardly get anything out of you. Like, what is wrong with you? And ask that question. Ask those vulnerable, tough questions. What's going on in your life at the moment that, that you are showing up to the best of your ability, but it's about 1/10 of what you normally do. So please share with me what's going on. And for people to have those questions, and I'm not saying getting on the couch with them and all that sort of stuff, but I'm saying just have that different focus, because when you do, guess what happens? They do become your greatest asset 10 times more. They will produce 10 times more because they're heard, they're valued, they're respected. They can see their fingerprint on the design of what's going on. And that's so important for us as humans, to know that we make a difference, that we matter. So that's where I would love to see companies go. As someone who has done that hard yards, and I understand how it was profit. First thing to cut would be employee expenses. But maybe it's not the first thing you cut. Maybe that's the first thing you throw more money at. Because when you actually do that, guess what happens? And ask them, how many times are employees asked, what do you think about this? What if we did this?
Or what are your ideas that we might be able to do? What are some of the things that you think we might be able to do to support you? And I think that, it's definitely an evolution for companies. And we've seen the examples like Zappos and Google, and most companies think that, those multi-billion-dollar companies can do that. Well, they can afford to do that. But
could they originally?
Well, and to your point, Karen, can they afford not to do that?
Yeah.
And that is really the key thinking around all of this. And even for small businesses, it's something that I've had to actually kind of take a step back from and look at. And, a lot of times we think that, okay, so a bonus check here, or, a little tchotchke or something there. Um, Sometimes that's enough for the small business owner to let their employees know that they care. But the bigger thing too, I think, is to ask the question. And I'll tell you a short story. I was doing my quarterly plan for second quarter, and I happened to say, it'd be really nice in one of my team meetings, it'd be really nice if we could figure out how to have an employee retreat, right? And oh my gosh, it was like somebody lit a barn fire in the center of the Zoom room, because I mean, the energy shifted. And so we're actually planning to do something small but powerful in
Yeah.
2022 and take the entire team to where some of the team is in the Philippines. And
Yeah.
I've never been, other team members have never been. And, what is that? What can that do for your team? And pre-pandemic, a lot of our mid to large size companies, the executives did this kind of thing. The senior executives definitely did that type of thing. And what would it be like if, even on the lower level employee side, you had these opportunities? I've seen a few companies doing the, what did they call them? Like the Zoom group. It's kind of like the arcade on Zoom for the
Okay.
entire company.
All
And
right.
and that, I think, has a place. But it's still, it happens when you ask the employees to participate in that kind of thing.
Do you know what the
And
greatest gift you can give any employee
what's
is?
that?
Time. Give them back their time. Let them go home, an hour, 2 hours early, regularly, a couple of days a week. Because when you give them their time, that's our most precious resource, and people just waste it so ridiculously, that when you actually say, you know what, you've done a great job, you go home now, and spend some time on yourself, go to the gym, or just go for a walk in nature, go and put your feet in in the ocean if you can. And the greatest gift you can give anyone is time. And when you give them that time, the funny thing happens is when they come back, they will be more productive. And you think you're going to lose, a couple of hours by doing that, but you're not. You're going to gain it back 10 times, because they'll be appreciative and they'll be waiting for it. And that costs you nothing. It seems like it costs you at something, but it doesn't. There's no financial thing to it. But just for them to be able to go home early, even spend time, shopping and cooking for their family, or spending quality time with their family, that's the greatest gift you can give any employee. And it doesn't cost you anything.
I love that. I
Mm.
really love that.
Yeah.
So Karen, many of our conversations here on the Health, Wisdom, and Wealth Show dive into the subject of using food as medicine, or rather now evolving into specifically using lifestyle and
Yeah.
food as medicine. And we believe in meeting people where they are in learning how to do life more healthily.
Mm-hmm.
And is there anything that you do, or even in the corporate space, you recommend that someone do to increase and maintain vibrant,
Yep.
good health?
Yep. I'm going to share a little story with you. Probably about 2 years after I left my corporate job and was on this journey that I'm on now, I went to a medium, and she was an amazing medium. She actually is an Australian, but she lives in New York, but she was in Australia when I saw her. And she said to me, if you haven't reversed the disease, you're in the process of doing so. And I went, my green juice. Now, at that stage, I started probably about 6 months, 7 months before I left my corporate job. I started green juicing every morning. I came across this amazing site, which is, I can't even remember the name of it, but and I still get his emails, Ross Bridgeford. I think it's Live Energized or something like that.
It is.
And he was very much into alkaline and things like that. So I started green juicing, and I knew that it was helping me with the stress of the job. Okay. 10,000 times more than the alcohol and the food and all of the other things that I was doing just to get through the day. So I highly recommend that everyone starts green juicing, because especially with organic ingredients, the better they are, great water, all those sort of things that you put into your green juice, because it really is a great way for me to start every day. And will have, probably one later in the day as well, because what I find is it energizes me. It energizes me without, so often people get their energy from other people. They have to draw it from them and bring them down or do whatever, whereas I don't ever do that now. And so I get my energy from, vibrant foods, from walking in nature and all those sort of things. So apart from green juicing, my next advice would be to allot yourself an hour a day of me time, where you just do whatever you want to do, whether it's, you read an amazing book, a chapter of a book, or you sit down and you do your exercise, but you're by yourself, because, when you really love being with yourself, you are never lonely. And you are the only person that you're going to spend your entire life with. So maybe now is the time for you to start putting yourself first and fulfilling all your dreams, and knowing that you do matter. And it's important for you to know that your body is the vessel that's going to get you to the end. So the more that you actually feed your body, what you eat today walks and talks tomorrow. So it's really important for you to understand that. That's my advice.
Awesome. I love that. And, as I look at us kind of bringing things to completeness, there is one more question, but you've shared so much great wisdom with us. I don't know if there's, well, I'm sure there's more. So I'm going to ask this question. What is some wisdom, some parting wisdom that you would like to share with our audience? Something that you really want to have a positive impact on them as they move on this journey, understanding that loss is inevitable, it's part of life, but there's, meeting them on the journey, how to live a more meaningful life, a more powerful life with the knowledge that you brought to us today.
I think I've said it all, but you know what? I guess with the last, year, 18 months that we've all been through, the thing that's really got me through is to understand that no matter what happens in the world, it's always going to happen for the greater good of all of us. So if, the media loves to ramp things up and, be bad news sort of thing and all that like that. But when you do the deep dive into yourself and start to, no matter what's happening in the world, and most of it is probably outside your circle of influence. So when you understand that, it's about you knowing who you are and knowing where you're going, and knowing that whatever you do will be hopefully for the betterment of all of mankind. But all of these things that happen, we're landing in a better place. We're not doomsday. It's nothing like that, but we're always moving forward, and it will always be for the betterment of all of mankind. So when you embrace life that way, it makes life so much easier. I'm just going to share this really quickly. The Bhutanese people in Bhutan, they meditate on their death from the time they are born. They learn how to meditate on it so that when they're not scared of death, and they're the happiest people in the world. So embrace your mortality and know that you will pass one day, but it's what happens in the middle, and it's the choices. You know, they say, there's an old saying that says life goes from B to D, birth to death. What's in the middle? C. And C is the choices. So always make sure that your choices are the most ideal to ensure that you are living and loving your life each and every day, because that's what we're here to do. We're all on a journey, but we're all on that journey back to love. Remember, we came from love and we're going back to love, but we can have a lot of love here in the meantime. It doesn't have to be all around loss. So find the good in every day, because there is good in every day.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you, Karen. That was amazing. Find it in every day. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, as we're wrapping up, I want you to know that you can reach out to Karen. Her information will be below this video. We'll make sure that you have all the links that you need, because if you are in the space of dealing with a loss, or you feel as though a loss still has hold of you and you'd like some assistance moving forward with a new clarity about what your life is all about, please reach out to Karen. And thank you so much. I want our audience to also know that the Beyond Loss information is on our resources page. And let us know what else you would like to know more about. What would you like to hear more about? We are about the powerful conversations in the realm of health, wisdom, and wealth, so that you can live your best life. And if you're a health, wisdom, or wealth practitioner and you'd like to share your knowledge and expertise with our audience, be in conversation with me, reach out to me, PM me. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm easy to find, VLynn Hawkins. Send me an email at vlynn@p3academy.com and let's connect. All right, everyone. We've got some exciting things coming up in future episodes, so stay tuned. Find us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, turn on your notifications, and be a part of all of this. I love being your host, but more than that, I bring what I hope will make a positive impact in your lives. So help with spreading the word, getting the message out. And thanks again for joining us, Karen. It's been such an honor and blessing to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Until next time, everyone, be well, live, love, and be a bigger positive impact maker in your world. Bye for now.
Bye.